Not just police, Michael, we'll be there too. There'll never be another Barry Humphries, or Dame Edna, or Sir Les Patterson. The world's lost them all. But those wonderful characters will always live on. Someone on the receiving end, more than a few times from all three, from a host of this show, Ray Martin. Ray, so nice to have you back in the ACCA studio. Bring back some memories.
It does indeed. The colours have changed, as my hair has changed too.
But nothing else.
It's very different now.
So over the years, in this role for 60 Minutes in the midday show, you interviewed Barry Humphries more than a dozen times, nearly always in character as Dame Edna. Who was in control?
I certainly wasn't. It was very funny. You could see, like Robin Williams, only worse, I think, with Barry Humphries, is that you didn't quite know when he'd finished an answer. And it was often, Robin Williams, you'd heard the stuff, as funny as it was, you'd heard it before on one of the TV shows. But Dame Edna would be very different. Dame Edna would simply go off on a tangent. And I used to wait to make sure she had something else to say, the spark in the eye. And then she'd suddenly stop and say, next question, as though you'd forgotten the questions. and that was to put you off. If she embarrassed you, she was the only one outside of my mum who called me Raymond. She used to call me Raymond all the time. It was like being admonished,
you're in trouble.
being dressed down every time. But that was all part of the style.
And she kept you on your toes.
She did indeed. And I'm so pleased now that internationally she's getting the sort of credit that she deserved. I think she was probably the greatest living Australian until Saturday night, probably since Bradman. I think she was that far in front of everybody else. Probably her and Paul Hogan were, and we've got some wonderful comedians, but they were so far in front of everybody else. And what she did that Hogs didn't do was that she, or he, in all the characters he played, he went with the times. You know, not only put a mirror up to Australia, but he put a mirror up to America and a mirror up to Britain as well, and he got them beautifully. He got the nuances, he got the idiom, he got Australia in one. It was embarrassing at times, but he had us.
So Prince Andrew and Fergie's wedding in 1986, you co-hosted with Dame Edna.
And Maggie.
And Maggie. And now, it took some digging, but we found that clip today.
OK.
Everyone knew who I was. I'd love to see old Prince Philip there. He's still he could leave his royal slippers under my bed.
Well, he's obviously a great ardent fan of
He
yours.
is. Did you see him nudging the Queen?
Can you imagine Prince Philip slips under her bed?
Thinking about it.
But it was really interesting. We walked across from the hotel to the executive producer at the time was a good madman, and he had this idea that we would sit on a red London bus, and there'd be Maggie and Dame Edna and Joan Rivers, the American comedian as well, who was fairly trenchant. And so I walked with Barry across the park to a dressing room. We had a caravan near this red bus, just outside the cathedral, and where the wedding was. And so we walked across, and he was talking about, I don't know, literature and art and the usual things Barry would talk about. And we got into the caravan to change, and I'm putting on that black jacket and a morning suit for the occasion, and she puts the frock on. And he's talking away to me until she put the bra on. And down the other end of the caravan, she puts the bra on, and suddenly he becomes her. And so in the mid-sentence almost, he became Dame Edna.
So you walked in with Barry and you walked out with Dame Edna.
And halfway through the conversation, until the bra came out, we had Barry. And then suddenly Dame Edna was there, never to change it again. So it was extraordinary. That's the time that really he became her. And when we did the later stuff in Moody Ponds and some of the 60 Minutes story, it was extraordinary that people we didn't use in the Vox Pops, like truckies and wharfies and blokes, nobody said, "G'day, Barry. How are you going, Barry?" Everyone said Dame Edna. The kid, the girl with the tongue ring or the mouth and nose ring, etc. They all treated her like someone's grandmother with respect, and we all bought this Dame Edna image. It was just amazing.
But we bought it, but also the royal family did. I mean, there was a moment when Fergie was driving along on the way to her wedding where she spots Dame Edna and gives her a big wave and acknowledges her.
She's waving her gladdies at Fergie, and Fergie saw her just cracked up and waved. She's about to get married, and she sees this crazy Australian woman off on the top of a red bus.
But I mean, all of the royal family loved Dame Edna, and even though she was so cutting, there was something about her.
Yeah, there was. I mean, they accepted her. She was just the housewife over the sink in Moonee Ponds when she started. But as I said earlier, the genius of what he did was to go with us. And it was just that early stuff that we saw where he embarrassed us and embarrassed, I think, the Queen as well. But you'd see them laugh. You couldn't help but laugh. That was the worst thing, doing an interview with him as well, with her, because it's hard to ask questions when you're cacking yourself, when you're actually laughing so heavily.
See, I never had the pleasure. I just imagine you've got to strap yourself in and just it goes where it's going to go, right? And there were two fabulous interviews that you did. You did many over the years. There was that moment you just touched on where you took her back to Moonee Ponds for 60 minutes. There was also that time you interviewed Dame Edna with Barry Humphries. Take a look.
I doubt if anyone in Moonee Ponds has had a facelift of any kind. This chin, that was added. This double chin was added.
Is that right?
It belonged to Elizabeth Taylor. It was her left love handle.
Can we sort it out, Dame Edna? After 50 years, can we sort it out?
I've thought of litigation, but why bother? I'm going ahead without you, Barry. Thank you, thank you. Ray Martin, and goodbye, Barry Humphries.
Isn't that brilliant? I mean, she said that we suggested we should try and do something like that, and she said, you can't do it. The BBC could never do it. And they'd tried, but somehow Channel 9 did it. We did that. And she walked around, and I think what she was saying then really was Barry was at the point where he thought he couldn't take her any further. And so the last tour that Barry did was Barry Humphries talking about it. So I don't know whether she was giving us a signal there or not of what was happening, but quite extraordinary. I mean, again, the acting of Barry as we shot that one Saturday afternoon in Melbourne, the acting was he just acted as though she really was in the room, and the secret was that she had to walk in front of me to make it work. But it was just
how cool! I mean, you were right there for that moment, Ray. And you know, that's one of the things, isn't it, with Barry Humphries, because making people laugh is actually something he took quite seriously. But a lot of his comedy in today's world wouldn't be allowed. I mean, I don't think anything that Sir Les did would have been allowed.
No.
So, can you imagine though the world of comedy without Dame Edna? Or Sir Les Patterson?
No, I can't. I honestly can't. And when you think we've had them for 40, 50, almost 60 years, it's that sort of comedy that we're going to miss dreadfully. As I've said, I thought there was daylight between him and almost everybody else we've had.
I tell you what, Ray, it's been nice having you back in the studio. Do you want to hang around and do the rest of the show?
Could I please?
Yeah, all right, no worries. After the break, more Ray. And also coming up, buy your own home for $10,000. Is it too good to be true?